guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new, welcome. My name is Dina. As you guys can see from the title, today we are going to be telling some spooky Christmas stories. So this idea actually wasn't my idea, it was an idea from a subscriber, so thank you so much for suggesting this. They suggested it on one of my Halloween videos. If you guys are interested in that, I will link those below if you guys like spooky stories. But yeah, anyways, when I heard this idea, I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun, but like not something I would normally do on Christmas. But the more I started looking into spooky stories and Christmas, the more normalized it became. And I didn't realize that although it's like kind of a forgotten tradition now, years ago in the Victorian age, gathering around a campfire and telling spooky stories around Christmas was actually very popular. So it's not something that we like do now, and it's definitely something that's become more of a Halloween tradition. But like there's details in Christmas that I totally did not even notice before. Like the song The Most Wonderful Time of the Year, there's the one line that says, "There will be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago." And I've never like paid attention to that line. It just completely went over my head. But I'm like, oh, okay. So this isn't completely out of the ordinary to tell scary stories around Christmas. So one of the reasons why people used to tell scary stories around Christmas time is that it's the darkest time of the year. So there's belief that because Christmas was the darkest day of the year, it was actually easier for spirits to communicate and interact with the living. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Just a little bit of a background history for you guys, but we're gonna get right into the spooky story. So there's a couple of like common legends I kind of want to discuss, but I also have some scary stories that people have told, like true ghost stories that they've experienced around Christmas time. So get cozy, get a drink, get a tea, get some snacks, and we are gonna tell some spooky ghost stories. So some of you might have heard of Krampus. I know of Krampus as a legend or a myth from Austrian culture because my boyfriend's family is half Austrian, but it turns out he's actually part of a lot of different cultures. So I looked him up, and basically he's thought of as Saint Nick's evil twin. And where Saint Nicholas would, bring toys or goodies for kids that were good, Krampus would visit the bad children. He has horns, hooves, and he hisses. Some people think this guy lives in just Germany, but he's also in Austria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovenia, and northern Italy. So it turns out he's in a lot of different cultures. So tamer stories of Krampus actually have him doing nothing more than just scaring kids and giving them lumps of coal, while there's actually some other more severe versions of Krampus. Sometimes he whips them into shape with a birch. I'm assuming a birch branch is what they mean. And then there's more intense versions where he'll have like a sack or a basket and he'll kidnap children. And then depending on who's telling the story, he either eats them, drowns them, or sends them straight to hell. So Merry Christmas, children, you better be good, because that doesn't sound fun. And then there's another one I thought was interesting. So this was a story about Greek goblins. So basically around Southern Europe, there's a legend of the, and forgive me if I say this wrong, Karankonkolos goblins. I'm half Greek, but I don't know anything about Greek. So forgive me. These little monsters live underground throughout the year and only come up during the 12 days of Christmas. Although some say they're only up for the first 10 days of Zamhari, the dreadful cold, as late December is friggin' freezing. Some say that they're more annoying than harmful, pulling pranks, causing mischief, things like that. But in Turkey, it's a different story. So they'll actually hang out on the streets at night and ask seemingly ordinary questions to passerbys. If you don't answer correctly, the goblin kills you. The correct answer is Kara, Turkish for black. Another favorite hobby of the Karankonkolos is calling out to people while imitating their voices of their loved ones, luring them into the cold in hopes that they'll freeze to death. So these legends are so pleasant, right? Oh my goodness. It's funny though, I think a lot of these were just honestly used just to threaten children to behave, and I don't blame parents. I don't even know. I'm a bird mom. That's all I can handle. But anyways, those are just a couple legends I wanted to share. Now I'm going to get into the true ghost stories that people share. There's some cool ones I found on a website. By the way, everything I'm reading to you, I will link in the box below if you guys want to read a little bit more. But yeah. Alright, so let's get to some true ghost stories. Although I love myths and legends and they're fun, I like to hear some real experiences. So let's do that. This first one is called The Bright Light and the Calm Watchdog. I had an unusual visitor on Christmas Day, 2008, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Santa Claus passing by my house in Bloomington, Indiana. The day started out in typical fashion with the opening of gifts around the Christmas tree. I served an early Christmas dinner for family and friends, and everybody departed by 5 p.m., except my sister and brother-in-law who live with me. me. They were sleeping in the bedroom at the end of the hall with the open door. I went into my bedroom with my dog, Toby, and shut the door securely. I was just dozing off when I heard the latch of my bedroom door open. I waited several seconds for my sister or my brother-in-law to ask me whatever they came to say, but there was no other sound. It was almost 7 p.m., so my bedroom was pitch black. I had left lights on in the kitchen and in the bathroom, and there were lots of Christmas lights in the living room, so the hallway would have been well lit. I would be able to see whoever was at the door just by lifting my head. I pushed the blankets down and lifted my head from the pillow, but just as I would have been able to see who was in the doorway, an extremely bright light hit me right in the eyes. I shielded my eyes and yelled, "Turn out that effing light, you're blinding me." The light immediately disappeared and I heard the bedroom latch close. My bedside light is a touch lamp, so I tapped on it and looked around the bedroom. There was no one in that bedroom except me and Toby. Toby jumped off the bed and went to the door without showing any signs of alarm. At first I was frightened because Toby is a Dutch Shepherd, well trained to be an excellent watchdog and proven personal protection dog. Since Toby was already up, I decided to go let him outside and see what sis or brother-in-law needed. When I went to the hallway, I could see both of them still in bed. I took Toby to the living room to let him outside, and there was nobody there either. So who had opened my bedroom door and turned a spotlight on my face? Like most people, the thoughts of loved ones are always close at hand during the holiday season. When I first went to lie down, I was thinking how happy I was that my small family had enjoyed a pleasant Christmas. But it would have been so much better if my mother and brother had still been alive to share it with us. I would like to think it was my brother's spirit stopping by to say Merry Christmas. I still think of you. I haven't been able to debunk this strange event or find any kind of rational explanation. I'm half afraid that my heart stopped during my sleep, and that light I saw was the bright light people report after near-death experiences. Leave it to me to see the stairway to heaven and ruin my chance at eternal paradise by saying, "Turn out that effing light." I've made a mental note that if I ever see another bright light to clean up my language, just in case. That's actually funny. That's cool. Like, there's just no explanation for that. And when you have like something with like literally no logical explanation, you're like, it's gotta be something. I feel like it would be startling, but I wouldn't be scared. And like, they didn't sound like they were scared because I had a feeling it was family members. But I think it's still really cool to hear people's stories about their family members visiting them and like relatives that have passed and stuff. I think that's cool. The next one I'm gonna read is called The Returned Relative. It was Christmas time of 95 or 96 at my aunt's house on a reservation in North Dakota. Some of my family was in the living room watching television. The kids are playing in the rooms or sleeping, and my aunt, uncle, and I were sitting at a table putting a puzzle together. My cousin, who worked at a casino, would come home around midnight or 1 a.m. This night, she pulled up and was walking towards the house. She looked in the window and saw me sitting at the table, my uncle sitting across me, and someone standing to the left of me and someone standing in the corner. So she continued to walk in the house thinking nothing of it. As we were sitting there talking, she looked at me and asked who was standing next to me a few minutes ago and who was in the corner. I told her no one, and she said, "Yeah, there was someone standing next to you. It looked like your mom, and she was playing with your hair." I have long hair, which I used to wear down all the time. She said this person was running her hand on my hair, like a mother does to a child. It kind of freaked me out, being as I was probably only 12 or 13 at the time. My cousin swears up and down that someone was standing over me, rubbing my head and watching me put the puzzle together with my aunt and uncle, and there was another person standing behind this person. We got around to thinking it was probably her mom she saw. She passed away on her birthday a week before Christmas back in 1992. In my family, we consider our aunts and uncles to be just like our moms and dads. After thinking it could have been her, it didn't scare me so much. However, we couldn't figure out who the person was standing in the corner. And always around Christmas time, something strange always happens, and we just think it's her visiting us. I know some people that get scared at these stories, even if they're a relative. One of those people is my boyfriend. Like, I always think, I'm like, if you saw a relative that you love that passed away, like, wouldn't you be happy that they're there? Like, he's like, no, that's scary. Like, anything paranormal, if it's not of this world, like, it's considered scary. I think it's cool, but it freaks him out. But let me know in the comments below, like, do you find these, like, kind of stories kind of, like, heartwarming, or do they still kind of give you the chills? I'm kind of curious. Alright guys, so the next story I'm going to read to you is called The Haunted Tree. My parents and I lived in a small home that was around 90 years old. The year would have been 1996. We lived there from the time I was 7 years old to the time I was 19. From the very day that we moved in, I felt like we were not alone. One year, around Christmas time, I was having a friend spend the night. The heat had just shut off briefly, and she and I were sitting in the living room watching television when the temperature dropped substantially. As I rose to turn up the heat, the Christmas tree began to shake violently. Ornaments were falling off right and left, and she and I were terrified. We ran upstairs and lay down on my bed. My white cat curled up with us, and the door was open slightly. When I gazed out at the dark hallway, I was horrified to see a tall white figure run down the hall. I turned to my friend, and she acknowledged that she had seen the exact same thing. She never spent the night ever again. That would be scary. I have to say, like, if anything's gonna scare me, it's like a figure that I can't like figure out who it is, and especially like if it's just gonna like run quickly past the door, like, oh my goodness. That would scare me. I mean, it would probably scare me more if it ran and then it just stopped and like turned and looked at you. That would be really scary, but like still, like running past the door, okay. That one actually kind of creeps me out. My mother, to whom I was very close, passed away in 1964 when I was 17 years old. I left home that year and moved to Ontario from Nova Scotia. In 1969, I met a girl whom I will call Karen, and we got married in March of 1970. In December of 1971, we were expecting our first child. We were living in a small one-bedroom bungalow, and there was a fireplace in the living room. My wife and I loved the fireplace, and we had it lit every single night. It was Christmas Eve 1971, and we had just finished putting the gifts together under the tree, and nice fire gave off a beautiful glow. On the tree, one string of lights, which was supposed to flash, had stopped several days before. It was 5 minutes to midnight when the fireplace suddenly just about went out, and the string of lights started to flash, and the other lights stopped flashing. My wife and I were sitting on the floor and had become very chilly in the room. I looked over to my lazy boy chair, and a figure was sitting there. My mother, with a big, beautiful smile on her face. My wife, who had never met my mother, said she could see the same thing. This ghost never spoke, but just kept looking at me and my wife and smiling. At 12 midnight, the fire in the fireplace started up again, and the lights on the tree stopped flashing, and the others started flashing again. I looked over to the chair, and the ghost was gone. No matter what I did to those Christmas lights, they never flashed again. That's so cool. Oh my God. I love it. So I also roamed on Reddit. Reddit is really good for sharing just like personal stories for different things. The first one is called Customer. I hear a lot of scary shopping stories, and they're usually from the perspective of the person who is shopping. However, my scariest experience happened when I was working in a bookstore. About 2 months after I was promoted from bookseller to assistant manager, we were hit by the Christmas rush. It was always so overwhelming, really. By the end of the night, everyone was so wiped out, and getting all the receipts and drawers counted at the end of the night took so much time. On the nights that I was closing, I let the workers go as soon as they were done. There was no reason to make them stick around and be tired while I was finishing up my work. After I let everyone go, I went back into the office to do my work. After a while, I heard the doorbell ring. We had security cameras, but there wasn't one at the door, so I had to go to the front door to see who it was. There was a guy there, and he was dressed in dark clothes and had his hood up. I asked him how I could help him, of course watching him through the door. "Hey dude, I left my wallet in your store," he told me. "Can you open the door and let me come in and get it?" Oh my goodness. Don't open the door. I asked him where he thought he left it and that I would look for it for him. He didn't like the idea and told me he wasn't sure. He had been shopping through the entire store and would have to look for it. I asked him if he bought anything, and he told me yes, which meant he would have his wallet on him at that point. I pointed that out to him, and he seemed taken back a bit. I told him we didn't get anything turned in, but I could take his information and get it back to him if we do find anything. The man began getting angry, telling me that he needed his wallet tonight and he couldn't wait for me to look for it. He kept insisting that I let him in so he could look for it. When I told him that there was no way I was letting him in the store this late and while I was alone, he began getting visibly angry. He told me that if I didn't let him in the place right away, he would call the police and tell them I stole his wallet. He even got his cell phone out of his pocket and acted like he was gonna call. Oh my God, that would like make me so nervous. Not the police thing. I'd be like, sure, go ahead and call the police. Like, I'm not opening the door for you. How sketchy is that? At that point, I had enough. I told the guy the best I could do for him is take his information and call him if anything was found. I then told him if that wasn't good enough, there wasn't really anything at all I could do for him. He got really angry and began swearing at me, grabbed the door and began shaking it, demanding that I open the door. I told him that I was going to walk over to the customer service desk and call the police. I wasn't willing to cooperate anymore. As I made my way over there, I noticed the guy take off down the street. I thought that was the end of him, and I figured that I really didn't need to bother the police for this. I went back to my work and tried my best to get it done so I can go home and get some rest. Oh my goodness. I think like closing alone by yourself at night shouldn't be a thing. And I know it's like a bookstore, so probably it's like independent and they're just like, whatever, I can do it myself. But I think you should always do it in pairs because there's some really sketchy people out there. It took me about 2 hours to honestly finish up all my work. I hadn't heard the doorbell ring and pretty much figured that I wouldn't be seeing that guy ever again. However, when I was going to the front of the store, I did look around to see if anyone was in the parking lot before going outside. I went out to my car and couldn't wait to get out of the cold. However, it froze when I was maybe within a couple feet away from my car. There was someone in the back seat of my car. He was hiding down on the back seat with his hood over his head, but there was definitely someone in the back seat of my car and I knew exactly who it had to be. Furthermore, he must have seen me or he wouldn't have ducked down. Oh my god, this is so stressful. That is so scary. That's actually like one of my biggest fears. Like whenever I go to my car at night, I always make sure there's no one in my car because like imagine how scary that would be. I did the only thing I could think of doing. I turned and ran at full speed back to the store. I didn't look back until I made it to the door, and yeah, he was coming at me. I unlocked the door and shut it behind me. He made it to the door right before I could lock it, so I had to do my best to hold it closed while turning the lock. As I did, the man screamed all sorts of obscenities at me, telling me he was going to kill me. As the door opened outward, I quickly pushed it towards him, knocking him onto the ground. Before he could realize what had happened and recover, I was able to get the door closed and locked. I immediately called the police. The guy left after the door was locked, but the police picked him up pretty quickly. Oh my god. I'm so glad they found him. Imagine, okay, if the guy had gotten away and the police didn't find him, like I would be terrified. Like I would not be able to go to work. I would be scared to go anywhere. Like this guy knows what I look like. He knows what my car looks like. He knows where I work. Like, oh my god. That is so scary. Like scary, like creepy, dangerous human beings are actually way scarier to me than ghosts. Like that is so scary. Oh my god. Ugh. Okay. I'm glad they were okay. All right, so here's another one. And these are like the first time I'm reading these, so like hopefully they're good. That other one was actually, it was really good. It was really scary though, and the fact that that was a true story. I'm just happy they're okay. But anyways, this next one is called The Swimming Hole. I wasn't sure how to tell the story at first. It didn't happen to me, but I feel like I should tell it in first person. My grandma was born in the 1930s. Thankfully, she's still hanging on today. But when she tells me stories, they come from a world that I could never ever imagine, so I will try my best to show you what happened. My grandma grew up in the country, and not the country that most people are used to. When someone has a house they buy in the hills and they have a cable or phone and electricity. My grandma didn't have any of that. She lived in a shack and was one of 11 children. They often didn't have food. They often relied on their dad going hunting. So this was in the 1930s, and since it is, things were very, very different. My grandma was only 5 years old at the time. She had a little brother around about 2 years old, and although she didn't actually tell me why, one day they were out at a swimming hole. Her parents were off doing something, and they left my grandma, who was 5 years old, to watch her younger brother. Wow, how times have changed. The 5-year-old, watch your brother at the swimming hole, because that's safe. Oh my god. It is always weird when she tells me this story. I cannot fathom having a 5-year-old being responsible for a 2-year-old, but she assures me that this was not out of the ordinary for the time and the place that she lived. So while her parents, who would be my great-grandparents, were off doing something, this 5-year-old in the middle of nowhere was left to watch a less than 2 years old right next to a swimming hole. This is where it gets weird. I know that an 80-year-old memory is probably very flawed, but she swears up and down that she saw something that looked like an arm grab her little brother and he fell into the swimming hole. Being 5 years old, my grandma could not swim yet, so she began yelling and screaming, trying to get the attention of her parents. But she didn't know what else to do. She ran over to the swimming hole and she tried to grab her little brother. She was unable to reach him, and the entire time was yelling at someone who wasn't there to let go of him. It didn't take too long until the swimming drew the attention of my great-grandparents. They came around and found their son flailing around for his life in the swimming hole. So her dad was able to jump into the water. He grabbed his son. My grandma still swears to this day that when he grabbed the boy and pulled him out of the water, she saw an arm and a hand wrap around his leg, and when my dad tugged hard enough, the hand let go and went back under the water. A lot of things could have happened here. It could have been her imagination that she noticed the hand there. It is possible that she never even saw the arm and her memory added it later. I think some people will think it was a ghost. But here is the thing. It doesn't really matter what it is. My grandma believed she saw what she told us. Whether she did or not, it was a horrifying image to her. That on its own is so damn scary. And of course, being like they were at the time, her parents punished her for letting it happen. They punished a 5-year-old child for not properly watching a 2-year-old. I really hope things have changed. It's so true. That has no Christmas relevance, but that is actually really scary. that a ghost could have possibly tried to drown a 2-year-old. Like, I find like things coming out of water is just something that like always scared me, and like whenever I feel something on my feet, like if I go to a lake or something, and I know it's like just seaweed and stuff, but it gives me the heebie-jeebies. I do not like swimming in water where I can't see what's at the bottom. Like, it's not fun for me, and like usually I kind of get over it, and if I'm with some friends, I'll be like, okay, whatever, I have a good time. But like, I prefer to be on a float than actually like swimming around with my feet. Like, I don't know what's down there, I don't trust it. Anyways guys, I think I'm gonna leave it at that because this video is gonna get too long if I tell too many stories, but I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I upload new videos every single week, and I hope to see you guys soon. Take care guys, bye bye.